Hello, this is Gene. I just want to talk a little bit about the Gillette commercial, and I want to talk about something a little bit different today. Not really, it's basically the same stuff, but are Russians white? Are they our brothers through DNA, through history? Yeah, so I want to talk about that and wondering why Trump is getting so much heat for his apparent friendship with Putin and the people of Russia. And I think that the underlying thing here is because Russia is a white country, and I think that most people in power, whether they consciously or unconsciously believe this, that they feel threatened that we'd have another huge state that was predominantly white, that if anything happened in this country, that maybe white people will get together and revolt. So I think that's one of the reasons why they're against the idea of us being friendly to Russia when our history is pretty similar. Um, Obviously, our style of government was a little bit different, but they're a little bit different now than it was 30 or 40 years ago. And there really isn't no reason why that we cannot be friendly to their government. Um, that doesn't mean that Putin is a good guy. But anyway, just a little bit about the Gillette commercial. Of course, a lot of people have already talked about this, and it's something that should be talked about, but it's nothing new. Go out of here. Go. Go. My dogs will not leave me alone. That's just how it happens. Anyway, maybe they'll leave me alone now. So it doesn't really surprise me, and it's, when I talk about on this channel, I'm past being anti-feminism, anti-whatever that I am. I'm way down the rabbit hole, but this is just another way to control our young men. And the commercial opened up with an older man, black man, who would be one of the lowest people ever to do anything to any other women. It'd be one of the lowest percentages that would have any type of rape or anything like that going on. Then it shows almost an Italian-looking guy in probably his 30s, and then it shows an older white guy, and then it shows a young white guy. So the narrative is already being focused that we have to train our boys to be better. And you hear things, me too, boys being boys, something that we've always known what boys do. That is, it's a cultural norm that guys will go out and play with each other and punch each other and wrestle with each other. And there's a scene in this commercial about this. Like that's a bad thing, that you're physical with the other men and other boys. This is something that we've had to do because we had to be competitive against other men for the favors of the people that we're going to mate with. And this is the animal thing that we have. And what's happened the last 30, 40, 50 years is that they've trying to push that out of men. They take away whatever our roles are, and they'd say it's almost sexist for us to continually have these roles. And while they say this on one side, they also say that part of our behavior is toxic. And this is all from feminism. So people get upset when I talk about feminism because they'll say, I'm not that kind of feminism. I'm not that kind of feminist. I'm a person that believes that everybody has equal rights, which is stupid on its face value. But they still will not call out something like this. And then a lot of guys will get online, so I don't understand what's wrong because they're just saying men should be better. Okay. Men have been better, while the society continually allow women to do stuff without any responsibility. They don't call it rape when a 30-year-old woman has sex with a 12-year-old. They call it they had sex with they think it's something that it's sexual. It's not rape. The other way around, you would see if it was a 30-year-old man having sex with a 13-year-old girl, it would be called rape. And then we go to the family courts. It's one-sided to women, and they don't serve the same type of prison sentences of men for the same offense. And most men are okay with this, and this is a big problem when we try to get to be more focused on the idea that there is a problem with men's health care right now, or mental health right now. So when I talk about in this country that we've lost our collective soul, this is another part of the media that just wants to keep pushing that down because they feel the uprising that's happening. Now, it's not maybe not the whole thing about the white uprising, that you understand your background, your ancestry, and you're going to fight for it. But guys are starting to be red-pilled. And, of course, they're not going all the way down that rabbit hole. It takes some time. But some of them do. And these are the type of people that are being waking up, and people who are just at the top of that rabbit hole that see a commercial like that, and they understand where it's coming from. And then you just go into it, and you see who actually is behind it. It was a feminist female that did this. So here we go. If it was a man having a commercial about women and the problem that they have with their toxic female femininity, then of course they would say that that's mansplaining or that's some sort of that's sexist for a man to do it. But if a woman does it, it's fine. So now we have these corporations that are so to the left right now. It's just strange when you're talking about their marketing to men, but they see what they still believe the future in the long run. They're going to get more from it. It's rare that a company that's that big is just doing it just because they want to be virtuous. I mean, there is part of that there. But also I think that the bottom line is that they think at the end of the day they'll get more money from it. Or they make so much money that Gillette does because they overprice guys so much, and that's the reason why you have so other smaller shaving companies have come up. And some of them come out now and they've basically done the same thing. Harry came out the same thing, and I have a Harry's, so I won't be buying that. I don't shave that much, once a week. But still, you're talking about a core demographic. But what this commercial continually does is, at the end of the day, it's the white middle-age oppressor of every other group, and they want to push it down to the guy who's 20 years old that they show in the commercial, and say you have to be better. And we've already seen just through science that boys that are a generation behind me have got half of my testosterone. And it's continually going to go like this. And so eventually they're going to get exactly what they want. They're going to have feminized men who will not be able to protect the women. So the men that come into this country that have that testosterone and the motivation are going to take over our women. And this country will no longer be the United States. And there will be no such race called the white race. Will be mixed out of existence. Because women are going to go to men that are more powerful, that are going to protect them. And keep them safe, regardless of race. Women have always done this. Now, sometimes they were forced to do it, but at the end of the day, women will always do this way. They won't all of a sudden just say, because you're white, I'm going to stay with you. They're going to go with the guy that's going to, at the end of the day, is going to protect them and provide for them. And when you continually water not the idea of being a man in this country and the people in the West, women are going to look elsewhere. So these people that come from areas that are more, they have to be more testosterone because they had to have that to live, they're going to be attracted to that. So regardless, it is what it is. And the media and the government itself is pushing us to that way anyway. We are being blamed for the myth of shit that we did, that our people did 100 years ago, 200 years ago. And we're being blamed for this, and they're pushing it all the way down. And of course, we all know who's behind it. And we can talk about this forever, and everybody who watches this channel for the most part knows who's behind it. So when people get upset if I say something about the Jewish influence, well, it's clearly there, and people just don't want to hear about it. The other issue I want to talk about is I want to talk about the white Russians. But I want to talk about something that happened on Facebook last night. My cousin, which I will not name his name, said something about, which I thought was fair to the point. He talked about he was getting upset with everybody just going off on Trump. And he said that they can't go, that people on his side apparently shouldn't go down to his level. And then a couple seconds he said that 61 million people voted for Trump, and we shouldn't basically tar those people for whatever Trump does. And this is the similar thing that happens to people on the left, that in a way they're trying to be conciliatory and saying that they know that most of the shit that's happened to Trump is not warranted. But they still will say we can't go down to Trump's level, and we shouldn't really get upset with the 61 million people that voted for him because they just don't really understand. So they're like, it's a passive aggressive way of saying sorry, which is probably worse than saying, I can't believe you voted for Trump because he's racist, whatever. You know, you make this statement. So my sister actually responded to it, said she can't deal with a guy at work that's a Trump supporter. And I can't deal with people like him. And I just said, like him? That's interesting. And she says, like, you know, I don't want to deal with people that think that way. And I'm like, again, when you're locked into that echo chamber of the media that continually goes in your house every day, whether it's Fox with their own side, because they're becoming more and more liberal as well, but every other one is basically against Trump. And they continually push this narrative, this man is racist and sexist and bigoted and all this stuff. And it's so far from the truth. And I'm a guy as a Democrat who voted for Obama twice, voted for Clinton. I voted for Dukakis. I mean, I've been a staunch liberal for a long fucking time. But I take everybody and I research them. And I researched this man because I told you before in this channel that I thought that his campaign was a lark, that he didn't think he would win. But then I started researching the man, and I realized that this man is a great man. Now, did he have some help to start up? Yes, he did. His dad gave him $1 million. I wish all of us would have that. But a lot of people who get money don't always do well with it. Has he lost a couple businesses during the time and he go bankrupt? Yes. But was it 25 to 1? His businesses have been better than the ones that have gone bad. That's a good rate when it comes to business. But just the back of the scene type of stuff, you find out what a great man he is and how many things he's done for people without fanfare. He doesn't need. Now, does he have problems? Does he have thick or thin skin? Yes, he does. Is he a narcissist? Yeah, of course he is. Most people who run for office or athletes or whatever are that way. But deep down in his heart, I see the man that never had to really run, and he knew that this country is going down the tubes. And he wanted this country to be better before he died, so he could just make sure his kids would have the country that he grew up with. And I don't think anything wrong with that. And I don't think there's anything wrong with him saying that a wall is needed, and that we should have borders in this country, and our immigration system needs to be fixed. I think there's things that the liberals used to be for, but now because they all hate Trump, and the media is in their bag, and they continually push this stuff, along with the other parts that I talked about men are bad, normally white men, although we're not the ones that do if you look at all the crime stats, we're at the very bottom, us and Asians, which clearly relates to IQ. And that's another thing that happened this week about Dr. Watson losing all his stuff in Britain. It's like this guy, everything matches up. When you look at IQ and what happens with you in high school, how crime stats ride up, they all match up with IQ. And you have too many of these bleeding liberals that continually want to say, no, it's just environment. It's just environment. Well, I agree to a point, because in the black community, we have 73% single mothers. And I think that hurts boys and girls in those homes. And it makes it harder. And they're the ones that being on those stats, crime stats. So I think there is something to it. But the idea of IQ isn't relevant, and that the races overall have a different amount of IQ differences. Like I said, I think East Asians are about 107. I think U.S. Americans, white people, are about 100, and African Americans are about 85. And of course, you get to Africa and you're talking to 65, 70. And there's a reason why. If you look at Europe and you see all the stuff that they did over the last 1,000 years, and you look at Africa, you see what they've done. These are things that are relevant. That everybody knows. And what the Chinese and East Asians have done, it clearly shows who started first, who started writing shit down, who had a philosophy, thoughts in their minds that talk about the world. East Asians, then Europeans. I mean, it's clearly the way it is. Sometimes, having a little IQ, you don't understand the rest of the world, and you're not having to deal with everything in your mind, that you can just go on and do what you have to do. But again, this doesn't mean that if Europeans have a higher IQ than African Americans or people from South Africa, that they're better. It's a different type of thing. I will say on this channel that I think that the West is the best, and Europeans built it, and we had some help, very, very small help from other people, but Europeans, white people, built this stuff. And at the same time, because of us, because we think about trying to help people, we are also hurting ourselves at the same time. So, just talking about that, Mr. Watson, and also Congressman King, that he is being ostracized because he talked about white supremacy when I think was just basically he said the wrong word. But of course, you can't really say anything about that now. And we're seeing more and more reports coming out that just talking about Western civilization is racist as well. Because they know that if we talk about Western civilization, it comes to that whole thing that white people don't have a culture, that Europeans don't have a culture, which is just stupid on its face value. Europeans conquered this area, claimed it for their own, and then we had a revolt, and we had our own country after that. Basically, 99% of those were Europeans. And we still have a fondness for our European heritage, but we're a different type of people. And we do want to be more tolerable, and we want people to come here and have the American dream, but we want them to come here with the idea that they're going to be loyal to this country. And a lot of them that come to this country, and we can rail at the third world that comes to this country, they're not really loyal. But there are people here that have been here for a long time that aren't loyal. A lot of them work in our Congress, and they're overrepresented in every area when it comes to the manufacturing of media. And those are the people that happen to have a Jewish background. And it is what it is. You can call me anti-Semitic, but it is what it is. And they have this, and I understand why. Because they're always the majority, they're always the minority where they're at, and they want to make sure that nothing will be used against them, because there's to a point they're smarter and they have certain amount of faculties that maybe some people that are Europeans don't have. They're just better at certain things, and they stay in their own group, and they continually promote people like you. It's like the mafia. You all have to be really Italian to be in that, or you can never get to the next level. You won't be a made man. It's the same thing with the Jews as well. Whereas Europeans, we are kind of like more malleable when that comes. And at the end of the day, if the people that are coming in or infiltrating this country don't have the values that we want, or their values is hearkening to something else, like I really honestly believe this. The Jews that are actually in Congress, they look at Israel as their homeland, and that's why we continually funded Israel at the rate that we do. Okay, finally, I think the problem that we're having with this Russia thing. Now, I'm not saying that Russia didn't try to impact the 2016 Olympics, the elections. They've been doing this since I've known it, because when I worked in the Air Force, there's certain things I did that knew that they were trying to, quote unquote, make it more difficult, let's say, or take away positive vibes for the United States. Now, of course, it's changed, because this is not the Russia that I grew up with. I mean, I went to the Air Force when we still had the Cold War going on. I was in Germany before the wall came down. So it's changed a lot. But they're in a lot of ways, they're a rogue nation, but so are we. We go into places we shouldn't be. We kill more people than we should. We use our military might to go places we shouldn't go. What the liberals used to be totally behind that, but now apparently they want us to stay in Syria and Iraq and Afghanistan. I look at the liberals now, and I don't know where they come from. So when I talk on this channel about the alt-right, a lot of people in the alt-right are not conservative. You know, that we are more liberal, but we advocate for our people, because why not? I mean, why shouldn't we be able to do that? And when you're told you can't do it, of course you're gonna rail against that and say, why is that? Why can't I say it's good to be a guy who happens to be white, because we founded this country and we did all this stuff, and everything I walk outside are basically all created by white men. I should be proud with that to a point, all right? But the idea that I think it's more the fact into Russia, and then that Trump, who of course did not collude with the Russians. We all know that the liberals and the Clintons did all this stuff to defame the president, and I don't understand how those people are not in jail. I don't understand it. I didn't think that the people in the Intel community at the lowest or the highest level would be so liberal, so tied to their own ideology that they're not going to go after the corruption that happened under Obama and with Clinton and what they did. And anyway, I think that the problem that they're upset about is that if somebody, let's say, I don't know, let's say Libya tried to impact the 2016 election, and somehow they could have changed it for Trump, and Trump was all in cahoots with him. I don't think anybody really cared. I think this is because Russia is a country that's over 200 million people, if I remember correctly, and the vast majority of them are white. And I think that they're really the last white country left, majority white, that will continually stay that way because their leadership believes this. I mean, Poland's the other one. Some of the people in Eastern Europe are that way. Although the UN is trying to force, the EU, excuse me, are trying to force migrants or people from other areas that are different to come in and basically replace the people that are there, because this idea that they're not reproducing enough when we don't really need it because we have AI that's going to be taken over. This idea that we have to continually reproduce when technology is going to kind of stop that a little bit. We just have to just get our immigration levels correct in this country and then urge white people to reproduce and urge black people not to abort, en masse. So, because people are not going to be like this. A lot of people have always responded to this. I still believe black people have a part in this country. They are part of the framework of this country. And most of them, when given the chance, they will assimilate. They will. There was a time that they always, for a long time, they did. But the politicians, the media, continually push this narrative that they're victims. And though there are a lot of conservative black men and women that are coming out now trying to dispel that narrative, it's still out there, and the media will continually push it because it allows people to watch their shows. So I think that there's this idea that if Russia becomes very friendly with us and become almost like our relationship with the UK, that might be a place that a lot of white people will go to, or they will understand. We might actually look at Russia, not some of the areas, but how it says that they want to save the native population, that maybe this country will look at the same thing and say, Europeans built this country, and we should be trying to save them from being extinct. And it won't be in my time, but what the issue is, I keep saying it's not going to be in my lifetime. This time frame is getting smaller and smaller. When sitting members of Congress are saying they're going to impeach Trump, that is, to me, is, if it ever happens, you're talking about the tipping point. And I don't want to go there, but it looks like we're going to go there. And then the Washington Post puts out something like from May 1st, basically saying that Trump stepped down, he didn't want to be impeached. It's like a fantasy that they want. This is supposed to be a national newspapers, and this is how that they want to sell. I mean, the resistance is clearly there. It happened the first day that he walked in office, and it's not got any lower. And if they can't find something in collusion with Russia, they'll find it somewhere else. And nobody on the left cares that our people, the FBI and Intel community, was spying on this man before he was president and then did it after he was the president. It's just weird. Anyway, I'm talking way too long. Let me know what you think about the Gillette ad. I've never bought Gillette. I said I have Harry's. I won't be buying that again. I don't need people to tell me to be a man. It's very similar how men are supposed to be. This is how God pretty much said we should be. Those who believe in God, who don't believe, what he says is pretty self-evident. We have to be protectors and providers. We have to be there when it happens to be. These are things that men do. And if we stop doing it, and we continually become more and more like women, the rest of the West is destroyed. It just is. And then the guys that really are patriarchal are going to come here and take over. and women will not like it there. And it's going to be probably the worst thing ever in this country. Anyway, let me know what you think, and we'll talk about it in the comments. You guys have a good weekend, and I'll talk to you guys later. Bye.